Hello guys, and welcome back to the workshop. Feels really good to be back in the workshop after our first little trip into Europe. And if you've been watching our European tour, you know that we've had a little bit of an issue with those fantastic fans. And what we wanted to do, because we've had those few little problems with those fans, and living in the van full time has made us realise that they're not really working very well for us. So we've actually decided that we're going to swap these fans out. We did a little bit of further research, and what would be a far better option for us would be these Maxxfans. And this is going to be a two-part video. In this first video, what we're going to do is I'm going to do an unboxing of this fan. We're going to go through all the features, and I'm going to explain why we chose these fans over and above the previous fans that we've already got fitted. We're going to go through all the options and features here in the workshop, and then in the second video I'm actually going to be removing the existing fans off the roof of the Sprinter, and we're going to be installing these new Maxxfans. So first thing we're going to do is get these unboxed. First thing you'll find in here is this cardboard tube. In here this looks like the remote controller. This particular one is the deluxe version, comes with an infrared remote. There's also the installation and operating instructions, and also looks like there's a set of screws in there as well. And then what we should be able to do is just slide this out onto the bench. Get rid of that box. And there we go, there's our new Maxxfan. Take it out of its wrapper. Right, before we get into the features of this Maxxfan, I just want to explain a little bit more detail why we've decided to swap these out. What we were finding when we was in Europe, we've got fantastic fans that have an inbuilt rain sensor, and the one thing we were finding is that they were really sensitive. It didn't necessarily have to be raining for that sensor to activate and close that lid. And even overnight, when it's maybe just a little bit humid, or in the morning when you get a little bit of morning dew, it was just enough to trigger that sensor and close the roof fans. And we were waking up in the morning when you need a little bit of ventilation overnight to keep the condensation down, and finding that both the roof fans were actually shut. Now we could bypass that rain sensor. We could just disconnect the cables on it and take it out of the loop altogether, and they would work perfectly all right. But then obviously the whole idea of that is when it does rain, you know, they would shut automatically. The other thing we found as well is that when it's raining constantly and you're stuck in the van, because we're living in the van full time, that's when you need ventilation the most. Because when you're cooped up in the van, condensation and that builds up. You're breathing out moist air. Sometimes you may want to be cooking in the van, and obviously that's giving off moisture as well. So you do need ventilation to get rid of that moist air. And if it's raining outside and those roof fans are closed, it's really not a good situation. We had a couple of days where we had non-stop rain in Europe, and one period where we actually had non-stop rain for a week. And it was a real struggle to try and keep the condensation off the windows without those vents open. So the beauty of this Maxxfan system is with this extended hood here, as you can see, which overhangs the base, this fan can actually operate in all weathers. So when this lid is open, it covers the base completely. So even if it's raining, you can still use these fans and still have extract or supply air. And that was one of the major features that we really liked about this particular design. I've just taken the cardboard packaging off and flipped the fan upside down so we can see what the components are. It comes with this inside flange which would go on the ceiling inside your van. You can also trim this down to suit the depth of the makeup of your ceiling. So if you've got insulation or tongue and groove boarding to make up that ceiling depth, this flange can be trimmed down to whatever depth you need. And then the fan itself that sits on top of the roof of your van, again, this comes in a couple of parts and it's just fixed by a couple of screws. The benefit being you can actually mount this flange to the roof of your van without the rest of the fan getting in the way, without the weight of it and the bulk of it. You can just literally fix this flange to the roof, so that makes the installation really easy. And then if we look at the components of the fan, we can clearly see now that's this extending hood that hangs over the main body of the fan, and this is what stops the rain getting in. Even in the upright position, this overhang is enough to stop driving rain getting into the fan. With normal fans like ones we've got, or standard, even standard MaxxAir fans, the canopy is the same size as a fan. So when it's actually in the upright position, it's actually open to the elements. So this particular design is one of the main features that we liked about this Maxxfan. The other thing with this Maxxfan that's different from the others is it's got two main support arms. Our fan only has one support arm on one side, and it can make the lid feel a little bit sort of flimsy, especially in high winds. Whereas this fan has got a lot more strength and a lot more support, and you can actually have this fan open whilst you're driving along because the lid is supported really securely. It's got 10 speeds, and they go up in 10% increments from 10 to 100%. You can have the fan on supply or extract, so you can have air coming into the van or you can have air extracting out of the van. It comes with an infrared remote controller, this particular deluxe model does. So you can operate it by these push buttons here, or you can actually operate it remotely. It has a motorised lid, so when you turn the fan on and open the lid will open automatically on an electric motor, and then the fan will start. It also has a thermostat setting, so you can set a particular temperature within your van, and if it gets above that particular temperature, the fan will automatically switch on, open up and provide you with ventilation. One of the other really good features that we liked particularly about this fan is how quiet it is. And when we did that video in Greg's Sprinter and we had that fan running, you could hardly hear it. And particularly at night, we like to have the vents open just to reduce that condensation overnight. So having a fan that runs really whisper quiet is essential when you're sleeping. And this fan really does run super quietly. But then on its maximum speed, it can move up to 900 cubic feet a minute. And to put that into perspective, our van is 14 feet long, approximately 6 feet wide and 6 feet high. So that's about 500 cubic feet. This fan can move 900 cubic feet a minute. So that's nearly 2 complete air changes within our van every minute. So one air change approximately every 30 seconds. So about 120 air changes an hour. So that's going to give us a massive amount of ventilation. You know, it's going to make sure that our van is really well ventilated at all times. The Maxxfans that we've selected come with a clear lid. It's got a very slight tint to it, but I think as you can see, you can actually see through it and it will allow the light to come through. We like the fact that we get natural daylight through our roof fans, particularly in the bedroom end of our van where we haven't got any external windows. This really is the only source of natural light. So with these Maxxfans, we wanted to make sure that we had this clear lid so that we could gain that natural daylight. Now the Maxxfans come in 3 different colour lids. We've gone for the clear lid because we like the fact that it's going to allow a lot of natural daylight in. And Maxxfan have kindly sent me some samples of the other lid colours just so I can show to you guys what the other options are. So let's get this box open and I'll show you the other lids. Here of course is the clear lid that we've got on the fans that we've chosen, As you can see straight through that. That'll allow quite a lot of daylight in. Then there's a much darker tint. As you can see, this is almost black. It's not a solid black, it's just a very dark tint. I mean, I don't know whether you'll be able to see anything, but you might be able to just see me through that. And obviously that's going to allow some light in, but obviously not as much as the clear lid. And if you've got a dark coloured van, dark grey or a black van, you know, that would go really nicely with that. And then finally, they do a completely solid white lid. So obviously with this lid, you're not actually going to get any daylight through there. It's a completely solid plastic lid. But if you've got a nice white panel van, as most of them are, then this sort of colour is going to blend in really nicely. What we'll do is we'll just hold these up to the window here in the workshop with the camera looking through them, and we'll just see how much daylight we can actually see through them. So what we're going to do now, I've got the camera pointing at the workshop window, so we've got a bit of daylight coming through there, and we're just going to hold up each of these covers just to see how much light we can get through them. First of all, the clear, which has got just a very slight tint. I'll just bring that in front of the camera. You can see it makes fairly little difference. Very slight tint, but not a lot. Still getting loads of daylight through there. Can see quite clearly. Now for the black one, which has got a very heavy tint to it. You can just still see through it. We can see some of the objects on the windowsill and the clamps up at eye level, but it's a much darker tint than the previous one. So that's obviously not going to let in as much light. Just for comparison, that's without, and there we go, that's with. And finally, let's have a look at the solid white one. Now, I'm not expecting this to let any light through. So there you go. That is completely solid plastic, so that's probably almost going to act like a blackout. But with that white colour, it will match your white panel van. What I can do while we've got it on the bench here is I can manually operate it. We don't need it to be powered up. So when it's in your van, you don't actually need the 12-volt supply in order to open these. You can just open it manually. There is a wheel here that we can operate. We can just turn that and that'll actually open the fan. If you imagine this is on the roof of your vehicle. So this is now opening the lid. That's it, it is open. So there we can see now the fan lid up in its opening position. We can now see that louvered grille on the underside, which is going to let the air in and out. And obviously this overhang here, there's no way any rain's going to get inside our vehicle. The other thing that I've noticed is when this shuts down, there is a small notch cut out all the way along this front leading edge. It's like a little weir. It's probably only about 5mm, but if I close this fan back down, the lid doesn't actually seal fully. This is going to be difficult for me to show you, but inside here, along here, this top lid doesn't actually seal right down to this curb. There is a small gap along here, probably about 5mm, which will allow some air to escape to outside when the lid is fully closed. Now they call this in the manual, this is the sealing mode, and it's basically a recirculation mode. You can have the lid fully closed and the majority of the air that's coming from the fan will just be recirculating within your vehicle. But I guarantee with that little weir there that a small amount of that air will make it out of the van. So if you had it on supply, you could bring some fresh air in over that little bit of a weir there and into your van. So these would actually operate to a certain extent while they're fully closed. One of the other really good features with this is you can take this fly mesh off really simply just by twisting these little clips. And as easy as that, you can take that off and then clean that. I've seen a lot of van videos where these are just absolutely smothered in bugs. So that's a good idea that you can just take that out like that and give that a good clean. So let's just have a run through the controls. At the top here we've got a manual knob that you can open and close the lid with. Underneath here there's an electric motor, and obviously during normal operation with the electronics the motor would open the lid. You wouldn't have to do that manually. And then down the bottom here, these are the buttons to open and close the lid obviously. We've got an on-off switch just to turn the fan on, and then we've got an in and out. So this will change the direction of airflow from supply to extract. And then we've also got the temperature button, which on the fan, if you press this, it'll automatically set the temperature to 26 degrees. If you want to alter the temperature, you'd need to use the remote controller. So let's just have a look at the remote control. It comes with a handy wall mounted holder that you can just screw to the wall of your van. And then on the actual remote, you've got these buttons here. So let's just run through them. You've got the on off button, which turns the fan on obviously. We've got the fan speed, small fan and large fan. So this is to increase the speed and decrease the speed. The auto button puts the fan in an automatic mode where it works on temperature. And then with this plus and minus button you can alter the desired temperature so that the fan will switch on if it gets too warm in there. You've got the lid open button, which is this button down the bottom corner. And then this last button here changes the direction of airflow from supply to extract. The fans that we've already got on the roof of our van came from America. The American standard size for roof fans is 35 centimeters square, 350 millimeters. Now, these particular Maxxfans also come in a similar size. So these roof frames are 350 millimeters. So this is going to be a direct replacement for us. We can swap our old fans out for these new Maxxfans, and these frames are going to fit perfectly without us having to cut any more of the roof of our van. Now that's an American standard size. There is also a European standard size, which is 40 centimeters or 400 millimeters square. So what Maxxfan do, the fan body stays the same, but what they do is they make a different set of frames, 400 millimeters square. They still connect to the same fan body, but obviously the frame size is slightly bigger to suit those different fans for the European market. So if you're swapping out an existing fan that's 400 square or 40 centimeters square, then these fans will also be a direct replacement for that. And then lastly, the fan itself comes with a 2-year manufacturer's warranty. So if anything goes wrong in those first 2 years, you've got a satisfaction that the parts will be replaced free of charge. We actually got both of our Maxxfans from Leisure Vehicle Services, and I'll put all the details in the description of this video below. You can click on their website and take a look yourself. I'll also put some direct links down there for the 3 different deluxe versions that have the 3 different coloured lids. So if you'd like to buy a white, a black tint or the clear tint fan, there'll be 3 links in the description of this video. You can click on those and it'll go straight to the eBay website. So there we go guys, I think you can see with all of those features on this Maxxfan, the fact that you can use it in all weathers, the fact that it's really quiet, it's got those 10 different fan speeds. I think it's going to be a huge upgrade for us, and it's just going to enable us to have ventilation at any time, no matter what the weather is. So when we venture back out into Europe in October for a lot longer spell and through the winter, we know that our van's going to be perfectly ventilated. In the next video, we're going to be taking those old fans off the roof and we're going to be installing these MaxxAir fans, and I'm going to give you a detailed installation video with plenty of hints and tips. So make sure that you're subscribed, hit the little bell notification, you won't want to miss that next video. Thanks very much for watching. Cheers!